That's great. Thank you very much.
Eva, ¿me escuchás? No sé si pudiste leer mi correo. Hice una corrección sobre el tema de los miembros de la referencia. Bueno, Portugal no está, no es miembro de la referencia.
No sé si es general, pero yo dejé de oír a Eva, por si acaso.
Sí, Gaby, yo tampoco la escucho.
Voy a escribirle al host. No sé si será que tenemos que entrar otra vez. A ver, a mi email.
Hello,
Helen,
good
hi.
afternoon. Can we start? Did you have a great lunch? I didn't, so that's why I will be awake, and you know. Okay, welcome to this session that is a bit challenging because I'm the only person present here. For me, it was at the beginning like doing we had the spiritism. Are you there? But they are there. We know that. Welcome to this session and good morning in Argentina, Costa Rica, and Ecuador. And good afternoon for those that you are following us online. And hello, Gabby, that she was the organizer. My name is Eva Mendez. I'm a Deputy Vice President of Open Science in the University Carlos III of Madrid, and I have been elected to be the moderator, the facilitator of this session, because I don't know if you know that Spain is a Latin American country that happened to be in Europe. So probably that's why I'm here. But this session is about the future, building the future of partnership in the Global South. So I will invite them to join the session, so I will not be so lonely here. If somebody wants to join me, I know that there are some Latin American people in the public too, that probably they were not in the building up of the La Referencia or this infrastructure that these people are going to share with us today. But you are probably, you have a say to share with us. So let's start. I will just be the facilitator for the session, but I will just give the floor to Gaby Pino, Gabriela. She's she works for the University Nacional de Costa Rica, and she has been one of the more Latin American people involved in RDA. They organized an online conferences, and I think it was a great idea for her to put this session together to share with you how they have been doing in the last 10 years that we are celebrating 10 years of RDA, but these people were not that much involved. Gabby, can you tell the people how was the idea behind this meeting that you organized?
Hello, good morning. Good morning for me, good afternoon for you. Well, for us was really a race to understand how to work with open data and open science. And it was a chance that at the time that we began as a university to work really hard on that, RDA was trying to organize something in Latin America, and they happened to be in Costa Rica because of a Codata school. And then we got in touch with RDA US, and they were so kind to help us to understand how RDA is working and why it will be a good opportunity for us as country and as Universidad Nacional to work with RDA.
Thank you very much. Let me now introduce you the three speakers that they are going to be the protagonists of the panel today. The first one is Federico, that he is from Argentina. He has a graduate in economics, and he has experience in public management and have been working as a directorate of the analysis of public expenditure and social programs in the Ministry of Economy in Argentina. And he is currently working as an administrator manager of La Referencia, that probably you have heard about this infrastructure of open access. Secondly, we have Javier Valdivieso, that he is a system engineering. He's based in Ecuador, and he's a specialist in global information system and a master's degree in information and communication technologies applied to learning. But he's currently an academic and coordinator of the continuing education of a Global Association for Smart Home Technology, which is called CEDIA, as you see in the screen. That is something like EduRoam for Europe, but for Ecuador, something like EGI for Europe and things like that. But they have to do the building up the infrastructure for research in the Ecuadorian country. And last but not least, we have more an early career researcher, an early career younger practitioner of research data management. That is Freddy. Freddy Sumba is a computer system engineer who works in the research and development department in CEDIA, and he's currently involved in developing public policies for open science in Ecuador and implementing scientific data repositories in Ecuadorian universities. I want to talk to them when we were planning these sessions, and I wasn't the person that planned the session. I was trying to discuss with them and say, well, I know a lot about Latin America. Every time when I go to Latin America, they ask me to teach something, and I end up learning so much every time I go there. So the purpose of this session for me is that you have the spirit of how much you can learn from Latin American countries in the experience, and I want to review with them the past, the present, and the future of RDA. We have been sharing in the previous session the past, how RDA was created 10 years ago. We have been 20 plenaries together, one pandemic together, very closely working on RDA, on the COVID data, remember that? And a lot of things had happened in the last 10 years. But where was these people? I mean, Latin America wasn't very much involved in the community. It is very expensive to come from Latin America to Sweden to Europe. But I want to ask them what happened in the last 10 years in Latin America. Where are you going? What were you doing at that time when we are creating RDA? I know that sometimes there are people here from Brazil, Claudia, Leila, Alejandra. There are people from some countries that they join the community, but they are not in the Latin American countries. What have you been doing in La Referencia in CEDIA in those times, 10 years before? Federico, you, for example, go ahead.
Thank you, Eva. I hope one day my English was so good than yours, but I will try my best. It's the 10th anniversary of RDA. Congratulations for that. And the same way, we are going through the 10th anniversary of the creation of La Referencia. I think it's natural that initiatives that have been formed and grown in different regions find themselves once they are consolidated in their own regions. In early years, La Referencia and the region focus on scientific publication. And it was only in recent years that the issue of research data began to be present more actively on the agendas of national governments, members of La Referencia. I want to, if I can, I want to have 2 minutes to introduce La Referencia to the audience. Maybe there are some people who doesn't know La Referencia. La Referencia is mainly a political initiative formed by the governments of Latin America and Spain, and works as a forum of open science, public policies, and technical agreements. So La Referencia is integrated by the high authorities of science, technology, and education of the member governments or institution with the endorsement of governments, like SEDIA in this case. The main objective of La Referencia is to give visibility in open access to Ibero-American scientific production at a global level, and in that way, contributing to give content to world ecosystem of open science. We operate under the principle of a federated network where each national node provides scientific production metadata. The regional node acts as a regional aggregator, building value-added services on the collection and interoperating with other regional global networks, always directing access to original sources of content that are the repositories. For the point of view of technological infrastructure, La Referencia provides an open software platform for the aggregation, quality, control, and interoperability of scientific production metadata. This open software is the result of more than 10 years of collaborative development, and is an integral solution that is installed on each node of the network and is increasingly being adopted outside our region. Last year was adopted by Portugal, and we are working in Africa to adopt our software. Now I think I will answer the question. Sorry for the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
In the early years, La Referencia and the region in general focused on scientific publication. It was only in recent years that the issue of research data began to begin present in the government's agendas. And with this, I think I answered the past.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you, Tim and Javier, and tell us what you have been doing in the last 10 years that we didn't show you up in the RDA?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. SEDIA has been a member of the La Referencia Science in 2015. In terms of scientific production, Ecuador has experienced sustained growth in recent years. According to the State of the Science 2020 report published by UNESCO, Ecuador ranked and 112 in the world in terms of scientific production, with a total of 3,400 scientific publications in 1918. In addition, the country has significantly improved its position in Latin America region, ranking 9 in terms of scientific production in the region. This is the situation in the past. Today, it's a growth in recent years. Freddie, please.
Yeah, just you can chime in, Freddie, if you want to complete the general overview from Javier.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me today. Right, in the last 10 years, maybe is I kind of work, focus, and preserve or build metadata infrastructures or metadata repositories. And it's basically in Ecuador, according to the history of the preservation of metadata, all universities, government agencies, etc., were working in metadata repositories. And maybe, in another hand, the data research repositories in Ecuador are still involved. What is the reason of the lack of the data repositories in Ecuador or in general in Latin American countries? Maybe it could be the lack of the infrastructure, maybe resource, even experts in the research data field. In the last 5 or 4 years, CDA has been working in provide a federated infrastructure using cloud computing and connectivity service. But yet, we need to work more and articulate this kind of communities, technology, etc., to help the researchers in Ecuador. Right.
Okay, so can we move on to the present? What are the expectations? Because it was in January in Chile, and I just realized that it's like the boom of the research data now there in Latin America. Something like there is a clear impact of the globality of the UNESCO declaration, is a real impact of the lessons learned from the open science policies, and also is an impact of the open access that in your case, I think sometimes Latin America invented the diamond open access because they didn't have any other option. That was the point. But what are your current work? What are your policies? What is your, how do you build up this partnership in a regional approach? That's very funny because a Chilean with an Ecuadorian has the same similarities that me with a Swedish person, but they have a common language. How can you deal with this approach based on a regional common language, the present policies? Do you think that we can come up with a policy globally in the region, something like that? What is the present status? I don't know if, who wants to start?
I can.
Maybe
I
Federico?
can start. I can start. Yes. Yes. A recent European Commission report on open access in Latin America and Caribbean was published, I think, 1 month ago.
A couple of weeks. Yeah.
Couple of weeks. Yes. And here I will quote the document. They say that Latin American Caribbean countries, in Latin American and Caribbean countries, there is a high penetration of open access policies, all of them based on the deposit of academic literature in open access repositories, but just a few recent initiatives on research data management. So I agree with you, Eva. Now we are in the present is more in agenda, but in the past wasn't quite prolific like maybe our countries. However, there are specific initiatives as regulatory frameworks, the case of Argentina, data repositories, research data repositories, and incentive schemes in different countries. Maybe you know the case of Chile. They have incentive schemes for research data to publish research that data. Regarding La Referencia, the first stage was creation and consolidations of the initiative as a regional level. At that time, and now I talk about institutional partnership. At that time, the help of COAR and Open Air was very important.
Be careful because they are here.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you. Huh? Careful what are you saying?
No, all good things. No, the help of COAR and Open Air was important to be internationally aligned from the beginning. Once La Referencia was consolidated as a leading initiative in the region, was the time to look for other strategic alliances such as RDA. In recent years, the importance of open research data growth on the agenda of the Latin American governments, as I said. And then, in the case of La Referencia, through an initiative from Costa Rica that Gaby mentioned at the beginning, Costa Rica member of La Referencia, which has already integrated an RDA node, we started the conversation with RDA USA through Rebecca Cosquela to formalize.
That is here too. Be careful.
Hi, Rebecca. To formalize a strategic alliance, and we signed a memorandum of understanding in September of 2021. The goal of the collaboration with RDI, which is working, I think, very effectively, is to give training in research data management for our region, the generation of a strategic alliance from collaborative work, RDA support our initiative for rich funding through SCOS, for example, and was very helpful for us. And also bring knowledge to the region, achieving the construction of national nodes linked through science and technology organizations. With RDA, we did simultaneously Spanish translation on the content that was very well received, as for example, different training in data stewardship, introducing 10 things for creating reproducible and fair research, among others, with different collaborations from RDA. Now, at the moment, we are diagnosing training needs from all the Latin America and Spanish and Spain in research data topics. Our idea is to bring Spanish interpretation to all these trainings to shorten the barriers of language in our region.
That's an important issue. What about you, Javier? Can you have your your current work in Ecuador in research data management from the political perspective, and then Freddie can just complete the technical part?
Thank you. In Ecuador, the CEDIA is fundamental the role. CEDIA in Spanish, Corporación Ecuatoriana para el Desarrollo de la Investigación en la Academia, is a non-profit institution in Ecuador. It's the national research and academic network that aims to promote and support the development of research and the higher education in the country. CEDIA is complied by more than 46 universities and more than 80 education institutions in Ecuador. The main service is the connective. However, currently more than 60 service free are provided to universities. The fundal service, I think, is through training of research in topics, the RDA, because I think there are still significant challenges facing scientific and technological research in Ecuador, such as a lack of funding of research, lack of policies, and lack of collaboration between research institutions and the business sector. Despite this challenge, the country continues to make progress in scientific and technology research and achieve important advance in different areas or topics of knowledge. With this background, the role of CEDIA is fundamental in the support of scientific production, for example, through training of research in different topics in relation with the RDA in the research people in Ecuador.
Okay, thank you. Can you complete that technical approach? Do you have infrastructure currently? Do you are working on particular tools for helping researchers to manage data? What is the current status of the technology there? Can you do it, Freddie?
Okay, so let me share something. How you say? CEDIA is working with different lines to promote the adoption of data repositories in Ecuador. Kind of effort is to make partnerships with different international and national organizations, with the aims to build the capacities for build a community, inter-community, and international community around the different platforms or tools. We are working in different platforms like a federated national research repository. What is the point of this repository is to provide different technologies that in the last years is cheaper to save data that 10 years ago was so expensive. Now save data is cheaper like cents, etc. And this kind of platforms has the intention to adopt the best practices and policies in Ecuador and even in Latin American countries. We are working with technologies like Dataverse in Ecuador that is similar that in Brazil, some researchers are working even in Argentina, etc. And we are working a kind of more sharing technology like a federated repository, because the common problem in Latin American countries is the lack of the resources to infrastructure technology or research data experts to build and support to share the data and make this fungible in the research ecosystem.
Okay, so you're constructing now common infrastructures versus repository. Do you have any kind of infrastructure that they produce data regionally or something like that? I don't know, how do you call it in Ecuador or in Latin America? We call it in Spanish something like, well, in English is research infrastructures or research data infrastructure, but we call it something like a computer capabilities to produce data or something like that.
Yeah, there is kind of advantage of CEDIA. CEDIA has different data centers in Ecuador, in different cities, and we provide cloud computing to the universities and government agents even. And this is a kind of advantage because we are using this technology. There is a local cloud computing on-premise in Ecuador and even in cloud providers. This kind of advantage allows us to implement data repositories. And maybe the technology is not a problem for CEDIA now in Ecuador. The problem now is in adopt this kind of technologies and follow the guidelines that another country use to save data, to share data, to make fundable the data, research data specifically. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to just pass to the future, because this session was supposed to be that what can we learn from your partnership in a regional approach. But I will invite some people from the public, the attendees, to join me here, because I know that there are some Latin American ladies in the public. Leila, please, because I wanted people that they can know the situation, join the conversation here, so I'm not so lonely. And I have seen some other lady, Alejandra. Where are you? She ran away. Who wants to join the conversation? I got you. Just join us on the conversation. Yes, you are Argentinian. Even if you are not a practitioner Argentinian, you're a practitioner on research data management. I told you that it wasn't, I didn't talk to them before. That's just a surprise. Anybody else that wants to jump in the conversation? Somebody from the Global South? Oh, thank you, Claudia from Brazil. You are Global South. You are South. Thank you very much. So you see, in a minute, I just gender balance the panel. I balance the I balance the representativeness of the countries, because Leila is from Colombia. She's from Brazil. Can I ask for a microphone to have my friends join in the conversation? Oh, you have one there. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. So the question now for all of you, for the whole panel, you hate me, right? She's looking at me like she hates me. But now let's have the common discussion, because my third question that we were just agree upon with them, what is the future for the corporation? What do you think? I know that you are not, well, you are in Brazil, you are based in Europe, you are not interacting with Latin American countries. You do. That's another thing that I want to put on the table, which is sometimes we are in Europe, we are engaged on the European approaches, policies, funding, but we are connected to other countries. How many of you have any relationship with Latin America? Just hands up. See, there is a lot of people that they are raising their hand. So that's very good because we are building a big community, and it's not about just a regional thing. It's just the open science should be global. And that's, well, the regional approaches is a question of distributing the work or distributing the funding. But the point is that it's global. So my question here will be just for you, girls, and for you in the panel, what will be the future? What are the lessons learned that we can just have to have a joint community for the future? What's going to be the future of the research data in Latin American countries, in the global South, and in a global approach? How can we think? Can we think about the Latin American Open Science Cloud? Can we think about the relationship on the European Open Science Cloud that is a service for the global South too? Do we think about kind of a payment so we don't spend the money many times as we did with the open access repositories? What is your perspective? Just open your microphone if you want, or just grab the microphone. Federico, what do you think is the future? From the perspective of La Referencia, which is established infrastructure already.
Okay. Hi, girls. Hi, Claudia.
Well,
we knew from Zoom meetings before. So when we first contact RDA, we identified that research communities in our region have good participation in RDA. But on the institutional level, we are trying to build relationship between RDA and national and science technology institutions, funding agencies, and research education network like CEDIA. I think that in the future, La Referencia can also help to understand the particularities of the region to RDA community. Maybe we can discuss some of these kind of things, and maybe we are not have the same opinion, but I think there is one thing that I was interested to mention is Latin America and Caribbean maintains a situation of relative structural weakness of national and science technology and innovation systems in relation with developer countries, and even with some emerging economies. In terms of numbers, the average of investment in research and development in terms of gross domestic product in our region is less than 1%. The last information is in 2020, but it's quite new. In the States, in the European Union, in the Organization for Economies and Cooperation and Development Countries, OCDE, and in China also, research and development spending as a proportion of gross domestic product exceeds 2%, and in some cases exceeds 3%. So Latin America and Caribbean maintains a structure of financing and execution of spending that has characterized in recent decades. Most of the financing of research and development spendings come from the public funds. This is different from what happens in the most developed countries, where the private sector mainly finance their research and development. Our region, maybe you don't agree, Eva, it's okay.
It depends. We will discuss. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Our region can learn, I think our region can learn a lot from RDA community in the future. We find that RDA is a very important source of knowledge related to research data management. And we, as La Referencia, are going to translate, make interpretation, and disseminate to make more accessible to our region and shorten, as I said before, language barriers. We have identified that a cultural change is necessary to improve data sharing, but the best way is to change the incentives, and for that, funding organization and agencies must intervene. So collaboration between RDA and La Referencia is, I think, a huge opportunity for us.
Wonderful. It's very nice to hear. Just of course.
Hello, I'm Claudia. I'm the RDA Council. I'm from Brazil. I live in Brazil. I work in Brazil, and I'll die in Brazil. And but not before, you know, I learn more from RDA and everything. So I'm sorry. I like to joke. Okay,
That's good.
so one thing that's a little bit different about my state, which is the state of São Paulo, we have a very stable and rich funder as compared to other funders in the Latin American region. And for this reason, they've been supporting our strong connection with RDA. And because of that, my first contact with RDA was in Denver Plenary.
I think so.
And from Denver onward, I saw Ross today, and I talked to him. I sat at a table with Ross and asked him
Would you like to join
questions
us?
to death. Okay, how do you do this? How do you do that? He put me in contact with people in ARDC. And then Ingrid helped me a lot, and lots of people in DANS. And then lots of people from the Canadian infrastructure. And then they went to Brazil, to the state of São Paulo, to give talks and talk to people and exchange ideas, so that in the state of São Paulo, according to the DiEM tool people, that's the largest number of users of DMP tool after the United States. Because
very
their
good.
DMPs became compulsory thanks to what we have learned from RDA. Okay, and this can be learned in this interchange. And the last thing I wanted to say, because if you give you the microphone, I want really, you know, give it back to you so soon. But it's that I was a tour guide. Okay, so once I get a microphone, I don't release it. But is that we have lots of very rich, very diverse data.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have lots of very capable people that just lack funding, motivation, interaction, and contacts. And RDA can learn a lot from us, and we can learn a lot from RDA. I'm a lover of RDA, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's a lovely message, Claudia. It's a lovely message because it's true. I think sometimes when you want to make an international initiative, it has to include everybody in the world. And we miss sometimes the people that they cannot attend in person. So that's why I think it's wonderful that even if it was challenging to organize a session like this, yet you are here virtually, is something that we learned with the pandemic. But I think it's a wonderful message because your own experience in Brazil can help people in Ecuador, in Costa Rica, in Argentina. I also was sharing the RDA perspective in Chile a month ago. And I think it's wonderful because it's real. It's not a likelihood that RDA can just help us. No, it's that already helped you. So Alejandra, what is your relationship with Latin American countries? You have been for a long time in Europe.
Yes, I have. Well, one of the difficulties is actually common sources of funding is not so easy. So the things I've done have been voluntary effort. But I think, I mean, as RDA reflects open science, it is a global issue, and the solutions should also be global. And this involves well, in terms of the data, everything around standards and interoperability, the multi-language issue needs to be considered and not always is. Where standards, for example, from W3C, they do have an emphasis on multilingual representations, and that's important. Then I think nowadays we could probably explore a lot more of AI and language models in terms of translations. I've been involved in efforts that were pretty much manual in translating software carpentry and
Okay.
data carpentry materials to Spanish. And I think that found a community, and I've even taught a course of those in Spanish. But again, it's been all voluntary. So, but yeah, I think RDA is a great forum for this conversation to happen as it's happening now. And we could support more open science overall and open data for Latin America.
That's fantastic. Do you have anything to add, Leila? Leila is based in Germany, but she's from Colombia. How long have you been in Europe?
In Europe, I have been 14 years, maybe something
Well,
like that.
a lot of time. But also you have a relationship with Latin America, like we do in a volunteer work. For example, I have been translating into Spanish W3C standards. I have been translating. I think one question that I'm curious about, what is your thinking? And that's for the whole panel. In what extent do you think that is a barrier, the language? Because creating these RDA communities at the national level or the regions level, at the beginning I say, well, if it is an international community, we have to do it internationally in English. But if you just have one community, you are just putting somebody apart. That's my perspective. And they're very valuable people that they can work in Spanish. They do fantastically. That's why I was translating standards into Spanish. But if they don't do it in Spanish, they cannot interact with the international community. What is your experience about this? Do you work with somebody, Leila, in Latin America? Or what do you think about the barrier of the language?
Well, it is a barrier, but it is not at the same time. I'm just kind of recalling what was said yesterday about the regional research data alliance associations. And I think they are very important because they allow people to express in their own language. The thing here is also that we have to recognize that even if community works mainly in one language, some of them, if not all of them, but at least some of them will have knowledge of English, so they can help each other. And I think that happens commonly. I mean, we find ways to communicate with Brazilian people, and Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese are not the only languages in Latin America. Because, well, we also have the Guyanas, we have a little bit of French, we have some indigenous languages, we have these mixes that happen in the Caribbean islands, that it's a mix between French, English, Spanish. So we have all of them. And I would say that the key thing in there is just collaboration. We can have, I don't know actually if there is an RDA association in Latin America or in any of the countries in Latin America.
Yeah, you have a node, RDA Brazil.
So we should have more of these nodes in other countries, and having kind of a collaboration across the different countries in Latin America based on the different nodes. I think that would be great, because indeed Latin America can bring into the picture a lot of data. Health data, for instance, that it is needed. I mean, we have tropical diseases that are really difficult to find in any other countries. And we have a lot of biodiversity. We have, as it happens in other countries as well, some endemic species that only will exist in there. Some of them are in danger. So I think we have really valuable data and it is wonderful that now there is this movement about open science, that it is kind of looking forward to share this data, because it's of global importance, and that is being recognized nowadays. We cannot be alone, and our data is not our data. We need to offer our data to others. So I think more collaborations would be a key thing. The issue about cross grant opportunities is a difficult one. But I think sometimes the Commission, the European Commission, and European countries as national institutions offer these kind of things. It's just sometimes they are not really spread or well spread, or people don't realize about it. So maybe also a way to find better ways to communicate these opportunities.
Yeah, the lack of common funders that you mentioned, Alejandra, is a key issue, but we can figure it out together. And also the collaborative work is for free, but sometimes time is so limited. So what do you think from Ecuador, that you are closer to the United States than Argentina? Argentina is more global south than Ecuador, even if you are global south too. But what do you think? What is your perspective of collaboration, Freddie and Javier? What do you think in the future?
Thank you. I think the future is to train and train research. As Freddie said, it is not only infrastructure, it's necessary to create a culture of data management. I think this future is train and train research.
Yeah. Any other thing to add, Freddie?
Okay, maybe we need to think and data-driven research that is necessary. Maybe to work with in Ecuador, in Latin American countries, is necessary that we work together with government agencies, even the research communities like the RDA, to help to the researchers to adopt the best practices and guidelines. It's so important because it's a common scenario that in Ecuador the researchers don't know what is a data repository. They only think some of them only think that is a kind of Google Drive repository that don't know what is the advantage of the data repositories. And it's necessary that we work together with this kind of communities to share knowledge about what is the fair principles, what is the advantage that they can have using data repositories, and promote the transparency, reproducibility, and even collaboration. Technology is changing a lot. Maybe in a couple of 10 years, Facebook has disappeared. And incorporating new technologies like artificial intelligence, maybe even blockchain, could help to preserve the data and make more usable the data in the future. I think that, how to say, in Latin America, we are expecting to the boom of data repositories, and maybe the more other communities like in United States or in Europe could help us to improve this kind of technologies or projects. Maybe sharing some information about funders. The source funders is so complicated in Latin America, but this kind of communities is the space to share this kind of experiences, projects, experts, etc.
Thank you. I'm happy, Gabby, that you turned your camera on, because it was about just making the spiritism and say, are you still there?
Yeah.
Because I think you have been a very good activist of RDA, facilitating the communication among Latin American countries from Costa Rica. What is your perspective of the future of collaboration and partnership between different countries in the region and with the other parts of the world?
Yes, I think one of the great advantage that we have had with the relation with RDA and especially with La Referencia as a regional organization is for RDA and for us as region to understand each other in our own dynamics. We have different dynamics as regions, and that happens with Asia and happens with Europe and North America. And we have some characteristics that not necessarily are understood in other regions. And then I think for a community as RDA, it's very important to understand each dynamic to change and to adapt their own results and their own dynamics as small groups, as a great community. And I think that will help us a lot in the future. because the good thing that we have now, we have in Latin America, I think 3 or something like that country nodes is Brazil, Costa Rica, and I think Chile is beginning to have one, and I don't know if Ecuador too. But the fact that La Referencia unite us as a region, give us a different way to communicate with RDA and a different way to interact with different actors in RDA community. And I think it's a great learning experience, a good practice to do in other regions. I don't know, maybe like the Great South, like Africa, they have a lot of regional organizations, and maybe we can, as RDA, begin to work with those great organizations, regional organizations, to introduce RDA to the different countries where data management and open science is something quite new.
Yeah, but that would happen just by seduction. As soon as people see in the rules, you have to show your data, and somebody will say, who can help me with this? And then they will find RDA. That's why we all found RDA. So let me just open the floor to the audience here, that I bet that they have some other issues to share with you, to another questions. And also Alejandra is helping me with a chat that somebody can, we have 72 people online. Maybe some of them, they are also from Latin America. Just a microphone for the audience. Is there any question or any comment or something to share with our panelist? Oh, over there. Thank you, because I didn't see you. If not, I will put you in the on the chair. Thank you. Is another colleague? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriela. I work at DataSite. And this was a very interesting discussion focusing on collaboration made and the challenges. But I wondered if it's maybe time to shift the narrative about Latin America and research infrastructure, because I come from the persistent identifier world, and I think significant progress has been made in the recent years. Currently in DataSite, we have 6 consortia. These are communities organizing themselves in Brazil, Chile, Panama, Mexico, Colombia, to promote research data. I know ORCID had also 3 consortia in Latin America, with one starting soon. And as Eva, as you said, in Latin America, open access is not an alternative, but the mainstream. So I think there's a lot of leadership coming from that region around research infrastructure, also with organizations like Cielo, Redalic, America. So I wonder if the panelists can reflect on that.
That's a wonderful question. Who wants to chime in, Alejandra?
Well, yeah, I totally agree. And I think we also should discuss, this is bi-directional. I mean, Leila mentioned all of the data that is available, that could be made available similarly to training material, or even publications that could be translated into English rather than the opposite. So I think indeed I would agree with that. And there are research organizations in Latin America producing lots of different results and data infrastructure that should be shared. So I think, this is not a one-way thing, and we should all be learning from that and exchanging.
Yeah, it's huge lesson learned, the practice of collaboration. Would you like to add something, Gabi, Federico, Javier, Freddy, or here, or somebody else?
I'd like.
No, I definitely, sorry. Go,
No,
Clara,
go ahead, Federico.
No, sorry. It's only that I definitely agree. The thing that I wanted to point out is that the importance of the discussion between in Latin America with the public institutions who are policymakers, and I think that's the way to make more permeable or efficient the collaboration between in this case with RDA. But I completely agree about the capabilities and about the notion of the present and the future in our region, that is great.
Great. Claudia, final words?
I just wanted to add that even though we talk about Latin America as a big blob, as you have mentioned, Europe is not a big blob. Like there's Spain and Sweden, right? And in Latin America, you have many Perus, many Colombias, many Argentinas, and very many Brazils, just because Brazil is bigger,
Yeah.
There is also the barrier across cultures, but there's a barrier from the outside that we are seen as a big blob.
Yeah.
Okay, so and sometimes we'll look at other regions and we say, okay, that's a big blob. I'm not going to mention any specific region so as not to offend any nationalities. But the richness is in the interaction, is in the two-way exchange, two-way road, two-way learning. And a big difference you asked about the IOSC is that you have the European global funding, which is impossible in our world because there's no such possibility. Okay, but anyways, it's always a wonderful learning experience, and collaboration is rich, but it's also very hard.
That's a wonderful way to finish this panel. I think it's true. We have to deal with the challenge of open science as a global initiative and maintaining the many Colombians, many Spains, many Sweden, that there are a variety of practices and also within the domains. So that's why we need RDA. And so that's why we are so happy that you join us, people that intended to be Latin America. What a big responsibility you are representing today, Latin America. Thank you. Join me to a big hand applause. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And this is a mate, and it's made of pumpkin.
I know what you were doing. It's not prank. Thank you for joining. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.